Donald Trump is running the no accountability administration, or at least for himself he is, because whenever something goes wrong, a screw up, a scandal, a failure, Donald Trump is looking for who to blame. When he's tanking the economy, it's Joe Biden. When he wants to cover up his Epstein scandal, it's Barack Obama. But now, someone in Trump's administration has become the scapegoat, and it's actually already backfiring on Trump. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting the work that we're doing on this show. Now, before we can get into how Trump is throwing Kash Patel under the bus for this whole crisis, I want to start with the response that Leader Jeffries gave to someone else covering up for Donald Trump. That is Speaker Mike Johnson and his refusal to hold a vote on the Epstein files. Let's take a look.
It's extraordinary to me that for years, Republicans promised to release the Epstein files as soon as they had the opportunity to do so, including current top figures in the Department of Justice and the FBI. And now they have the opportunity to actually come clean and be transparent with the American people, and they refuse to do so. And House Republicans refuse to act, even when there's bipartisan support for providing information to the American people.
And it's no surprise, betrayal has really been the theme of this administration on any issue, on promises of affordability. Donald Trump, draining the swamp. We've been talking about this for a decade. It hasn't come. What would you say directly, though, to Speaker Johnson of just him shooting down any possibility of bringing transparency for an issue that he had also been talking about for some time now?
I have a simple question for the Speaker and Republican leaders and members of the House of Representatives on the GOP side. What are you hiding from the American people?
I'm going to be sharing more of that interview with Leader Jeffries very soon, but what he said there is the central question. What are you hiding? Who are you covering for? Because this is very clearly a cover-up. I don't think anyone could possibly dispute that Mike Johnson might not just be covering for Trump, but his donors or his friends in the Republican Party as well. Do we think it's just Matt Gaetz who had some skeletons in his closet that he didn't want to come out? No, it's the entire Republican Party. It is all of them. That much is clear. And it became even clearer when the DOJ and FBI were caught in their cover-up, which is so important to what Trump is trying to now say, but was broken down by my good friend Sawyer right here.
We just got a piece of information that may explain Trump's sudden shift on the Epstein files. Do you remember back in February when Attorney General Pam Bondi told Fox News that Epstein's client list was, quote, sitting on her desk right now to review? Well, Dick Durbin, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, just sent a letter to Bondi with some important details about what took place immediately after she said that. According to his investigators, in March, Bondi pressured the FBI to put roughly 1,000 personnel in the FBI's Information Management Division to review more than 100,000 documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, with the goal of identifying documents that could be released. But here's where it gets interesting. The investigators found that those personnel were instructed to flag any records in the Epstein files that mentioned Donald Trump. And thanks to the Wall Street Journal report yesterday that Trump sent Epstein a cute little birthday letter for his 50th birthday, we now have confirmation that Trump is named at least once in those documents. According to this report, those thousands of personnel scoured those documents from March 14th through the end of March, but it wasn't for another 3 months that the DOJ would come forward and say, nothing to see here, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself and there is no client list. So to sum things up, Trump and his allies promised to release the Epstein files when they're elected. They get into office and Trump's hand-picked attorney general promises that big things are coming soon. They assign a team to review tens of thousands of documents, but flag anything that might mention Donald Trump. And then 3 months later, all of a sudden, it's shut up about Jeffrey Epstein. But now, according to Trump, the Epstein conspiracy was a hoax created by Democrats all along. Got it.
Now, we have been covering this story of how the FBI and DOJ have been working in tandem to cover Donald Trump, to find, identify, flag, and get rid, ostensibly, of these documents. But it's important to remember this in the context of who Donald Trump is trying to blame right now. Pam Bondi said she had the files on her desk. Kash Patel has been begging for them to come out for years. So why isn't Donald Trump letting them? Those are two people who clearly wanted to, right? At least in their public statements. Well, now Donald Trump has a new narrative that he is spinning, and it's coming from Carolyn Levitt right here.
The president just ordered the FBI to release the full Epstein files just get it all out there.
The president has said if the Department of Justice and the FBI want to move forward with releasing any further credible evidence, they should do so. As to why they have or have not or will, you should ask the FBI about that.
So it's Kash Patel's fault? Kash Patel is the one holding this all back? Kash Patel did say in an interview not too long ago that it was the FBI director who had access to the Epstein files. But Trump can't tell Patel what to do? He tells everyone in his administration what to do. They're simply extensions of him. They're his mouthpieces. It's the reason why this line that Pam Bondi is somehow responsible for the failures to release the Epstein files is just so laughable to us all, because we know who Pam Bondi works for. She works for Donald Trump. At the instruction of Donald Trump, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel were looking to cover and flag documents to help Donald Trump. That is what's happening right here. So if you want to blame anyone, the blame ultimately comes back to Donald Trump. But again, they're going to do everything they possibly can to distract, and we saw some of that from what was a meltdown of the rest of this press conference from Carolyn Levitt.
Thanks, Caroline. The Congressional Budget Office released updated estimates today about the Big Beautiful Bill now that it's law. They estimate that the deficit will grow by $3.4 trillion by 2034 and that 10 million people will lose health coverage by 2034. I know you guys are critical of the CBO. More broadly speaking, is there any concern from the administration that this bill, now that it's law, will increase the deficit in any way or remove anyone from health insurance that they have legal citizens?
No, look, this bill was a great bill for the American people. It was the largest tax cut for middle and working class families in our nation's history. And the president wants to see this country get our fiscal house in order. That's why this was a fiscally responsible bill, one of the most fiscally conservative pieces of legislation for its size that has ever crossed through Capitol Hill. And the president wants to cut our deficit. That's why he's effectively using tariffs to bring more revenue into the United States to ultimately pay down our debt that has been created by presidents on both sides of the aisles for many, many decades.
Oh, so we're just not doing facts anymore? We're not being reasonable? We're not being honest? We've done away with that? Okay. Yeah, this is the biggest wealth transfer in history, Carolyn. It's Robin Hood in reverse. I'm sure you might have heard that a couple times. I guess you don't actually care because you're serving your wealthy donors. But amidst all of this, amidst Donald Trump's terrible agenda and his worst scandal yet, of course, he's trying to distract, and we saw some of that with what Carolyn was asked about right here.
Caroline, was the president serious or was he joking this weekend when he said he might block a Washington Commanders stadium deal if they don't change their name?
The president was serious, and it's part of the art of the deal, part of his negotiating skills. As you know, sports is one of the many passions of this president, and he wants to see the name of that team changed.
Why is he getting involved in that? Why does he see that as part of his purview?
I think you've seen the president gets involved in a lot of things that most presidents have not. He's a non-traditional president. He likes to see results on behalf of the American people. And if you actually poll this issue with sports fans across the country and even in this city, people actually do support the president's position on this and the name change.
Changing the name back of the Washington Commanders is not just sad, it's not just embarrassing. What a stupid play. Does Donald Trump really think that's what's going to fire up the base? He posted a video, an AI video of Barack Obama being arrested in the Oval Office. And I was like, okay, maybe that'll get MAGA, the Rosie O'Donnell thing, like attacking the lamestream media and the fake news, sure. But this is some weak sauce. Let's be real, this is pathetic. This is what he's resorted to. That's how bad you know it is when Donald Trump is throwing 2016 racism at the wall along with a bunch of ketchup to try to cover for himself. But he can't because people are continuing to speak out. And the FBI is covering it up. Who? For? Donald Trump at his behest. And that was made pretty clear with the New York Times report detailed by MSNBC right here.
I want to bring in NBC's Garrett Haake at the White House. Michael Schmidt is the investigative reporter with the New York Times who wrote about Epstein's accuser. Sarah Ellison is the democracy reporter at the Washington Post. And Reed Galen is an independent political strategist and co-founder of the Lincoln Project. So, Michael, this incident that you write about being, was allegedly happened in 1995. Tell us more about it and what made this former employee go to the FBI in the first place.
This woman was one of the, if probably not the first person to blow the whistle on Jeffrey Epstein back in the 90s, reporting him to the NYPD and later to the FBI. what this woman described to us was how in those interactions with the FBI in the 90s and then again a decade later, she recounted to the authorities about an interaction she had with Trump, where Trump was in the room with her and Epstein. He kind of stood in front of her in an awkward way, and Epstein took him out of the room, and she overheard Trump saying that she looked like she was in her teens. There was nothing about that incident in and of itself that was criminal. The woman did say to the authorities that she wanted them to look into Epstein's ties to powerful men like Trump and Bill Clinton. But what we're trying to show in this story, in this anecdote, is how during a decades-long federal investigation in which many different witnesses are spoken to about a range of different things, investigators are going to soak up a lot of different information, a lot of different stories, a lot of different tips, a lot of different leads, a lot of different facts, not necessarily being criminality, but just different things that live in investigative files. It's those types of details that Trump's allies and supporters have really been after. They want to know everything there is to know about Jeffrey Epstein and his ties to powerful people. And in this story, this woman's account to the authorities is an example of that type of anecdote, that type of information that is soaked up in a federal investigation. You have to remember, just a small portion of what investigators collect during any federal investigation, especially one that goes on over decades, is ultimately used in court and subjected to cross-examination and is presented, with the judge overseeing the whole proceeding. In the case of Epstein, there was no such, opportunity for a lot of this information to be aired, but there are lots of different pieces of information kicking around these files in the bowels of the Justice Department.
This is the big problem for Donald Trump in blaming Kash Patel and saying that it's his fault. Because ultimately, the FBI does have access to all these documents, these reports of Trump's relationship with Epstein. So you have to give a reason why Kash Patel isn't letting it come to light. The reason is Donald Trump. That's it. Full stop. So if you want to blame someone and you're blaming the FBI, you're really just blaming yourself. And we're going to continue to call that out and point that out on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.